The mahogany casket gleamed under the funeral home's soft lighting, and I should have been focusing on saying goodbye to the man I'd loved for 8 years. Instead, I was listening to his family discuss how quickly they could contest whatever inheritance I might receive. She only married him for the money, my sister-in-law Patricia whispered to anyone who would listen. Poor Michael never saw it coming. Michael's mother, Eleanor, dabbed her eyes with a lace handkerchief while nodding in agreement. A woman like that, we tried to warn him. But he was so smitten with her working-class charm. I sat in the front row, wearing the simple black dress they'd criticized as inappropriate for a widow of standing, and listened to them plan my financial destruction before we'd even buried my husband. Michael's brother David leaned over to Eleanor. Don't worry, Mother. We'll contest whatever will he might have written under her influence. No court will let some opportunist walk away with the family fortune. What they didn't know, what they'd never bothered to learn in 8 years, was that Michael hadn't married a gold digger. He'd married someone who had more money than their entire family combined. The reading of the will was scheduled for the following Tuesday at the law offices of Hartwell and Associates. I spent the days between the funeral and the reading listening to increasingly bold conversations about how quickly they could reclaim what was rightfully theirs. Patricia had even gone so far as to pack up items from Michael's study, claiming she was protecting family heirlooms from my inevitable cash grab. Tuesday morning arrived grey and rainy, which seemed fitting. The entire family gathered in the conference room at Hartwell and Associates, their faces a mixture of grief and barely concealed anticipation. I sat quietly at the far end of the table while they clustered together like conspirators. Eleanor wore her best pearls and had brought her own attorney, a clear signal that she was prepared for battle. Before we begin, Attorney James Hartwell announced, I need to inform everyone that this is an unusual situation. Mr. Michael Harrison's will contain some unexpected provisions. David leaned forward eagerly. Unexpected how? I think it's best if I simply read the document. Hartwell adjusted his glasses and opened the thick folder. This is the last will and testament of Michael James Harrison, written in sound mind and properly witnessed. The room fell silent except for the rain pattering against the windows. To my dear family, Hartwell began reading, I leave you with the knowledge that appearances can be deceiving, and assumptions can be costly. Patricia frowned. What does that mean? Hartwell continued. To my mother Eleanor, who worried constantly about my choice of wife, I leave my grandfather's watch and the understanding that love cannot be measured in bank statements. Eleanor's face tightened. What about the estate? The house? The investments? I'm getting to that, Hartwell said. To my brother David, who believed my wife married me for money, I leave my book collection and the suggestion that he might benefit from reading about successful women in business. David's face was turning red. This is ridiculous. Where's the real will? Hartwell looked directly at me before continuing. To my sister Patricia, who spent 8 years treating my wife like an interloper, I leave my sports memorabilia collection and the recommendation that she research the concept of judging a book by its cover. Get to the money. Patricia snapped. As for my financial assets, Hartwell read, his voice growing stronger, my stocks, bonds, real estate holdings, and business interests, all of these I leave entirely to the Harrison Foundation for Educational Excellence, a charitable organization established and funded by my wife, Sarah Harrison. The room exploded. That's impossible. Eleanor shrieked. He can't leave everything to some charity. The foundation, Hartwell continued calmly, which my wife created using her own substantial wealth to provide scholarships for underprivileged students pursuing business degrees. David slammed his hand on the table. This will is obviously fraudulent. She manipulated him. Hartwell removed his glasses and looked around the room. I understand this comes as a shock. However, I should mention that I've been Mrs. Harrison's attorney for 12 years, long before she met your brother. The room went dead silent. 12 years. Patricia's voice was barely a whisper. I finally spoke, my voice calm and steady. Would you like to know what the Harrison Foundation is worth, Patricia? She stared at me like I'd grown a second head. I opened my purse and pulled out a portfolio statement. As of last month, the foundation's endowment stands at $47 million. Michael's inheritance will bring it to approximately $52 million. Eleanor's pearls seemed to be choking her. $4 to $7 million. I started the foundation 5 years ago with money from the sale of my technology company. The same company I built while working 3 jobs to put myself through MIT. I looked around the table at their shocked faces. The same company Michael helped me grow after we got married. David was frantically shuffling through papers. But you worked as a secretary when you met him. I worked as a secretary while building my startup in the evenings. It's called bootstrapping. I smiled sadly. Michael was the only one who ever asked about my work. The only one who celebrated when I got my first major contract. Patricia's voice was shaking. You're saying you're wealthy. I'm saying your brother didn't marry a gold digger. He married an entrepreneur who fell in love with a man kind enough to help her deliver food to homeless shelters instead of judging her for her charitable work. Eleanor clutched her handkerchief. But you never said, you never acted like. Like what? Like money was the most important thing in the world. I stood up, gathering my papers. Michael and I lived modestly because we both believed in using our resources to help others, not to impress people who had already decided we weren't worth knowing. Hartwell cleared his throat. There is one more provision in the will I haven't read yet. The family turned to him with desperate hope. Michael has also established trust funds for future educational expenses for his nieces and nephews, to be administered by the Harrison Foundation. Each child will receive full college tuition and expenses, provided they maintain good grades and demonstrate community service. How much? David asked weakly. Enough to send 6 children to any university in the country, I answered. Michael believed education could change everything. It's why he supported my foundation from the beginning. Eleanor was crying again, but these seemed like different tears. We misjudged you completely, didn't we? You misjudged both of us. You saw a woman from a poor background and assumed the worst. You saw your son's happiness and attributed it to naivety instead of recognizing that he'd found someone who shared his values. Patricia spoke up hesitantly. The foundation, what kind of students does it help? Students like I was. First-generation college students who work multiple jobs while pursuing degrees in business, technology, or social work. Students who want to build something meaningful, not just accumulate wealth. I walked to the window overlooking the city where Michael and I had built our life together. Last year, we sent 43 students to college. This year, with Michael's inheritance, we'll be able to help nearly 70. And you run this foundation yourself? David asked. I founded it and serve as president. Michael served on the board of directors. We spent most of our evenings reviewing applications and visiting the students we'd helped. I turned back to face them. It's what we did instead of hosting the dinner parties you kept inviting us to. Eleanor wiped her eyes. We thought you were avoiding us because you felt out of place. We were avoiding events where people spent more on wine than most families spend on groceries. Michael and I preferred volunteer work to social climbing. The room fell quiet except for the sound of rain against the windows. Finally, Patricia spoke. What happens now? Now you know the truth about who your brother married and what kind of life we built together. I gathered my purse and coat. The trust funds for the children are established. The foundation will continue its work. And I'll continue running it in Michael's memory. Eleanor stood up shakily. Sarah, I owe you an enormous apology. We all do. You owe Michael an apology. He spent 8 years trying to get you to see past your assumptions about me. He loved you all, despite your treatment of his wife. David looked stricken. What can we do to make this right? I paused at the door. You can honor Michael's memory by supporting the foundation's work. You can help us identify deserving students. You can volunteer at our scholarship events. I looked around the room one last time. You can stop judging people by their bank accounts and start seeing their character. As I walked toward the elevator, Eleanor called out, Sarah, wait. Would you have dinner with us sometime? So we can talk properly. I turned back to see a family that looked genuinely remorseful for the first time since I'd known them. I'd like that, Eleanor. Michael always hoped we could be a real family someday. Would like to learn about the foundation, Patricia added. Maybe we could help. I smiled, feeling Michael's presence in that moment. He would have loved that. He always said his family just needed time to see what really mattered. As the elevator doors closed, I thought about how Michael had written his will not to punish his family, but to educate them. To show them that the woman they dismissed as a gold digger was actually someone who'd been quietly giving away gold all along. The Harrison Foundation would continue its work, now with additional family support instead of family hostility. Michael's final gift wasn't just his inheritance, it was the revelation that love and worth couldn't be measured in dollars, but in the difference you make in other people's lives. And maybe, finally, his family would understand what he'd seen in me from the very beginning, not someone who wanted to take from the world, but someone who wanted to give back to it.